Welcome to episode 162 of the Scarlet Faithful podcast. It is Aaron Brightman. Happy Friday to you. Friday, September 8th, one day before Rutgers takes on Temple at SHI Stadium, Saturday night, 7:30, Big Ten Network, blackout game. Obviously, a huge test for this team, a game they should win, a game they're favored by between 9 and 10 points. Right now it's at 9, started at 10. We'll see where it shakes out tomorrow night. But, wanted to just kind of cover, and I should start by saying, I guess, last week I did a Keys to Victory with David Anderson, a longtime collaborator that I've worked with on the banks previously. And he's been, obviously did positional previews with me and then did the preview last week. He's going to be back at some point. He just had his second child, actually. So congratulations to David Anderson and his family. So great news for him. He'll be back at some point to do previews and to break down games with me. But for now, I'm going to do my best to do a Keys to Victory today. I have a lot of content out there on scarletfaithful.com. Please check it out. Between, offensive players, I think have a chance to play bigger roles in this game, which I'll touch on. Storylines for this game, in addition to just steps that Wimsatt needs to take. There's so much in terms of the defense. Yesterday we covered on the podcast, the defense versus the Temple offense. So let me get into things, and let me also talk about my prediction, which I also have out in a separate post. I have some game predictions out there, not just the score. But obviously this is a game, Rutgers on paper, they should win. What I'm most curious about, yes, ball control, time of possession, playing clean football, limiting penalties, limiting turnovers. The thing with playing clean, though, it's not just penalties and turnovers. It's missed tackles, it's drop passes. Can Rutgers continue? And they played relatively clean in all areas against Northwestern. Can they do that again tomorrow? The forecast is a little dicey. Thunderstorms are in the forecast, so we'll see how that plays out. In terms of if it's rainy conditions, wet conditions, it doesn't mean that that they have permission to play sloppy. But those are all things that go into playing clean football. But of course, you're going to see Rutgers try to dominate the time of possession. I'm very curious to see how Kirk Sherrock is going to call the game. Are they going to be as aggressive in the pass game? I think part of that will be with the personnel they have at running back, Sam Brown, Aaron Young. We don't know if they're available. Just a reminder, Big Ten releases availability reports 2 hours before kickoff now. I'll always have a post out 2 hours before kickoff as soon as that availability report posts. So we won't know until then, but will Sam Brown and Aaron Young play? We'll see. I don't think, they should be rushed back. I don't think Rutgers will rush them back. It would be nice to get them some action before Virginia Tech next week. But we don't really know, too much specifics. It sounds like both are closer to returning than not. But hard to tell at this point. Kyle Monungai, I think this is definitely a game that he could have a big game. I love the way he finished runs at times in that game. Jashawn Benjamin flashed it as well. But Gavin Wimsatt, is he going to take another positive step in his development? Is he going to continue to go through his progressions, make some good decisions? He was fortunate with a couple passes last week that could have been picked off. I think the biggest key to victory for me, or the biggest thing I'm interested in watching this team, it's really kind of double effect there, is with all the obvious points that they need to play well in terms of holding on to the football, limiting penalties, the defensive line being disruptive, special teams being competent, not making big mistakes. It's how much fire is this team going to come out with tomorrow night? I think Shiano is intentionally challenging them. I have the article out with this quote this week saying how Temple should have beat them last year. And there's certainly truth to that. Rutgers, got out of Philadelphia, the skin of their teeth, 16-14, got outplayed in that second half. Really was an indicator of what was to come in terms of Rutgers struggling on offense and them playing a team that they should have not skated by in terms of just barely getting out with a victory. And a win is a win is a win. But as dominant as Rutgers was last week against Northwestern, you want to see something similar in this game to just build off of. You want to start stacking consistent performances to build confidence, to build consistency on both sides of the football. But just in terms of the demeanor and mentality of this team, for this team to get to 6 wins, they have to fight. And Temple, it's a local game, it's a regional game. But that the staff has been all over them this week for how poorly they played against Temple last week. And let's see how they respond. I think that is a huge, it's not just a key to the game. It's not just something interesting to watch for, but I think it is a sign for what potentially could be the rest of the season. If this team comes out hungry, if this team comes out fighting defensively, it's going to be interesting because, listen, Temple's going to throw a ton. And Rutgers, if they get an early lead, how conservative will they get? I know there is some concern. Was Shiano, did he tighten the reins in the second half against Northwestern? They were up 17-0, then 24-0. Obviously 24-0. You don't want to show a lot when you're in those situations. I get that. But how close are they going to run it? If it's 17-7 early third quarter, I'm hoping they still run their offense and they're still looking to throw the ball. That's something to watch for too. But I think that as a team, how physical are they? Is the offensive line looking to bully that Temple defensive line? What will the rotation be? I wrote about that today. Gustalinkus was a surprise starting over Ireland Brown. You also had Brian Felter, who played more snaps than Curtis Dunlap at left guard as well. That was a surprise. So you pretty much got Needham, Asamoah, and Pierce along the line. There was, 10 linemen did play, but those two spots in particular were a little bit of a surprise. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I think for the Rutgers football team, and David Anderson touched on this at some point, I can't remember when. We've done so many podcasts lately, but, the need to be physical. And Pat Flaherty is that kind of offensive line coach. How physical can this offensive line be to set the tone? They're not going to be perfect. They were pretty good in pass protection last week. They weren't great in run blocking. How physical can they be in this game? I'm sure they got, they watched a lot of film and they've talked a lot about it. And that will be interesting to see too, if the staff feels like Rutgers is clicking with a certain lineup at offensive line, that they kind of, give it an extended run to in terms of that specific rotation. That's something to watch for as well. But physicality, can Rutgers go out and physically dominate and impose their will on Temple? Because they're going to try to sling it. Dante Wright's a really good receiver. E.J. Warner can throw. He is only 6 feet, but he counters that with really quick passes, short routes. I've mentioned, yesterday that the linebackers for Rutgers, Deion Jennings and Tyrone Powell specifically, are really good at pass protection. Just pass coverage. But this is certainly a test. It's a test. It's one they should win. I don't know. I don't think anyone should have visions of 61-14 from 2 years ago. I don't think we should accept 16-14 from last year. But what I think is going to happen, my prediction, I'm going to go 27-14 Rutgers. I think that they are going to have a similar start in terms of establishing control. I think it'll be closer. I think Temple is better offensively. Let me clarify that I think Ben Bryant is an overall better quarterback than E.J. Warner, but I think Temple's offense is a little more cohesive at this point. Northwestern's offensive line was terrible, and that really killed them. So I think that, and they have some new transfer receivers. Temple's got a little more continuity with guys back, with Sadi and running back, Mont Anderson back, wide receiver. You have Wright. You have Robinson Martin, the tight end. So those are all guys that are, for the most part back. So this is a little bit more of a experienced team together. And I don't think it's going to be blowout. And just the fact that, Temple does throw it a ton. And if Rutgers has a lead, they're going to run it a lot. I don't think that those are conditions that are going to, lead to a huge margin of victory. Could be wrong. Obviously, there's some X factors involved, special teams. Really hoping Jay Patel has some multiple opportunities in the kicking game and comes through. Flynn Appleby, another test for him. Jude McAtamey, underrated storyline was that, he 5 for 5 on touchbacks last week in the kickoffs. Who's going to return the football for Rutgers? Are they going to, bring the house to try to block it, in punt returns? It's going to be, those are the types of things we'll see more of tomorrow night. That will be telling. But overall, aside from the obvious points that I've probably belabored at this point, for me, it's the mentality of this team. Are they dogs? Are they going to go out there and take it from Temple from the get-go and just assert their authority, assert their will in front of the blackout home crowd? That, to me, would be the most encouraging development. They may make some mistakes, especially if the weather's a little choppy. But if they have that mentality, if they play with a certain level of energy, if the defense is all over the place, is if the offense is breaking tackles, if making plays in open space, that offensive line is hitting back, the defensive line is creating pressure and being disruptive. If the back of the defense is hitting hard, Melton and Longerbeam, it's going to be a good test for them with Anderson Jr. and Wright, the receivers for Temple. It's going to be very interesting to see how they do. So they should win those matchups, right? But if you're going to be a top half Big Ten team, you have to with what is coming. So a lot of interesting things to watch for in this game. I'm super excited for it. But I at the end of the day, for me, I just want to see Rutgers come out and want to play and show that hunger, because at times, their will, I think, got beat down a little bit last year, and they were playing tight. You could see the tension at times, especially on offense. Obviously, it's frustrating when you can't get things going. So I think Chirac is bringing a certain level of confidence and assuredness to the offense. I think the defense has a ton of confidence, and that can really breed a really positive environment for them. It should be a great crowd. I hope it's a great crowd. I hope you enjoyed the game. I'm going to have a ton of coverage. I have more content coming out before kickoff, but I'll have that availability report out 2 hours before kickoff. I'm going to have a live commentary game thread. Again, I had it last week as well, so check that out. And then, I'll have my normal stuff right after the game. It's going to be a late game, but really excited to see this team again. It was a promising start. Can they build on it? Can they stack up back-to-back wins? Can they stack back-to-back promising performances with week 3 ahead? Virginia Tech, who plays Purdue, hosts Purdue at noon tomorrow. Something to watch for there. I'll have something out on that as well. But as weeks go by now, can Rutgers continue to get better? And can they make that week 1 to week 2 jump? Teams can make that week 1 to week 2 jump. It's going to be really interesting to see if they can do that. I have confidence they will. And thank you for watching and listening once again.